What's up, guys? BJ Kicks here, proud guest star for Organic Price Books, here to talk to you about the Batman by Paul Dini Omnibus. We're going to go through a full overview. No worries, no spoilers around these parts. I'm just going to show you the artwork and talk a little bit about what I felt about these stories. So, looking at this beautiful dust jacket, this artwork is by Dustin Nguyen, who is featured pretty heavily throughout. So let's talk about what's included in this book. It says, dive into the seedy underbelly of Gotham City with one of DC's greatest storytellers. Now, this collects, it's actually not listed which issues right here, but we've got some stuff from Paul Dini's run on Detective Comics, which ran pretty much concurrently with Grant Morrison on the main Batman title. It's also got the Streets of Gotham title, as well as the Resurrection of Ra's al Ghul storyline, the Heart of Hush storyline, the House of Hush storyline, and a bunch of more bonus stories, behind the scenes material, all that. So again, love this art, also by Dustin Nguyen. Let's get this dust jacket off and talk about the content of this book. Now, before I take off the dust jacket, you guys can see we've got this cool artwork on the French flaps. And once again, it's by Dustin Nguyen. This from the Heart of Hush storyline. So you see Hush on this side, you see Bruce Wayne, Batman on the other. Very cool. Just in case you want to see the full dust jacket, there it is. Now, let's get to what we all came for. Let's look at this beautiful, beautiful, super huge hardcover. So once again, artboard art by Dustin Nguyen. I'm going to go ahead and let's open it up and show you this full spread image. Look at that. Beautiful. Batman by Paul Dini. So in case you're like, yo, who the heck is Paul Dini? His name sounds familiar, but I just can't place it. Paul Dini was one of the showrunners behind Batman, the animated series. You almost always hear Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Well, Paul Dini did a majority of the writing and story editing for Batman, the animated series, and Bruce Timm was the the art director. And so that iconic storytelling from the 90s that led to the DC animated universe, you've got Paul Dini to thank for quite a bit of it. So looking at this this table of content, you can see that the majority of all these issues are from the pages of Detective Comics, but then also a couple of fill-in issues of Batman, and then the Batman Streets of Gotham miniseries as well. So very cool. And yeah, there's another issue from Batman Black and White, Batman Gotham Knights, Batman Annual from 2017, and a story from the Detective Comics issue 1000 you'll see in here. And here we've got an introduction by Paul Dini, and then we start right out at the beginning with, I believe it's Detective Comics issue 821 is what we've got right here. And this is a story called The Beautiful People. And right out the bat, so I actually wanted to read this digitally before I did this overview so I could actually talk to you guys about the contents of the story. I haven't read all of it just quite yet, but I've read enough to tell you that this is really, really good. Now, like I said a little bit earlier, Paul Dini is known for his time associated with Batman, the animated series, and the greater DC animated universe. And right off the bat, in the first few stories, you get the Penguin, you get Poison Ivy, you get the Riddler. And this basically reads to me like a more mature version of the animated series. And what's funny is when you go back and watch the animated series, one of the things that makes it so timeless is that it's just classic Batman, and it's a little bit darker. It's a little bit more mature than most of the animated series that were around at the time, especially those involving any superheroes, right? If you watch, like, I don't know, the Spider-Man animated series and then watch Batman, there's such a difference. But anyway, the Batman animated series, which of course introduced us to Harley Quinn, gives us just such a mature look at the Batman mythos in Gotham City. And this run on Detective Comics takes that even further. Like, we see Poison Ivy, and of course, we know how much, like, sensuality and seduction kind of plays a role in her character. We kind of see that coming to a head here. We see also things like, for example, in the Poison Ivy story, not to spoil anything for you, but we see just more grotesque versions of certain events and certain characters. So all in all, you just get to see a little bit more gruesome activity. Again, it really does, to me, feel like Batman the Animated Series for adults. The storylines are a little bit more sophisticated. The mysteries, they don't telegraph themselves as much. And, this also takes advantage of the fact that it is a Detective Comics run. So it's Batman playing detective. And Paul Dini does a really good job of, like, throwing you for different loops across the story. Like, you don't always know who the villain is. You don't always know if Batman's gonna solve the problem and save the day. You just don't know. Things are left up to chance. And I think that is another thing that makes this run, mostly on Detective Comics, great. But again, it's not just Detective Comics. You also get the return of Ra's al Ghul. Because like I said, this was kind of running along the same time as Batman by Grant Morrison. So of course, Batman, during Grant Morrison's run of Batman, you had Final Crisis kind of in the middle of that. You had the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul. You had different, like, seminal storylines. And if you wanted to know what happened in those storylines, you kind of have to pick up this omnibus because Paul Dini is entrusted with a lot of those backstories, and they actually leave them out of the Grant Morrison omnis, which kind of sucks if you're just wanting to read Grant Morrison. But I promise you, if you're a Batman fan, you want this omnibus in your collection. Like, there's just no doubt about it. I assure you, you want this book. But yeah, so you get the resurrection of Ra's al Ghul storyline in here. But one thing that I found really intriguing about this book is that the majority of the artwork in this book is by Dustin Nguyen. And when I say the name Dustin Nguyen, perhaps you're thinking of, like, those super watercolory type of images, right? Such as this. Dustin Nguyen does watercolors quite a bit. And you might even think about these covers. Dustin Nguyen, his style of choice for covers and the thing that most people know him for are these watercolors. But he's actually doing traditional pencils in these pages, and he's being inked by different people and colored by different people. And just all in all, when I saw that a lot of the art in this was by Dustin Nguyen, this is not at all what I was expecting. By the way, we're in the middle of the Heart of Hush storyline, which a lot of people agree. Let me turn this light down. But yeah, and the Heart of Hush storyline, a lot of people would argue is the best Hush story. It's better than Batman Hush in a lot of people's opinions. So you get that in this book as well. So yeah, yes, there are definitely stories that run 3, 4, 5 issues. But what I love about this book is that for the most part, each issue in the Detective Comics run is a one and done standalone issue. It is just awesome. It's awesome. This is one of those books that you can, like, you don't have to feel the need to binge read it. You can, like I said, with the exception of a few multi-issue story arcs, you could just pick this up, flip through the table of contents and say, you know what? That sounds like a cool title. I'm going to read that issue today. And that's what I've been doing. Again, because I've been reading it in the DC Universe Infinite app, it's even cooler that I can just pick one up and skip around and go back in order if I want to. And that's something that I think you will enjoy as well. Batman Streets of Gotham look at Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is a full-fledged comic book star at this point. Now, because Paul Dini is such an integral part of the animated series and the animated universe, you definitely see a lot of heroes or a lot of villains also that you saw in the animated series here, like Firefly, for example. That's definitely a Batman the Animated Series villain. So yeah, but I love what Dustin Nguyen does with the art, because a lot of times his art style and character designs are very much reminiscent of the animated series, which is why the more I read this, the more I try to describe it to you. It's just like, dog, this is, once again, Batman the Animated Series for adults. Like, that's precisely what this book is. And if I don't know, there's really nothing else I can say about this book. But look at this, man. You got Tim Drake as your Robin during this run, by the way, which is also very cool. And man, I just love it. I love it a lot. This run is just great. And now, again, I haven't read all of these issues, and so I'm sitting here admiring the artwork as well. Look, it's Scarface. Man, so much to love about this. Like, when I'm looking through these pages, I'm just seeing the animated series. Like, I hear the theme music. I hear Kevin Conroy's voice. I hear Mark Hamill. Like, man, this just makes me feel like I'm a kid again, or an adult, or a teenager. Because Batman the Animated Series was just a constant in my life. And I love having a more mature version of that to read, especially now that I'm like in my 30s. But I mean, look, there's a but look, man, there's a who's who of villains. You even got a romance here between Bruce Wayne and Catwoman. I just saw an appearance from Alan Scott, Green Lantern. And look, here we go. Even more BTAS, influence there. But again, more adult, like I said. So, I don't know, man. What else is there to say about this? What's not to love about this? We got Alex Ross on art. There's just, now we're looking at Batman black and white pages. And then let's look at some of these extras. So these covers by Simone Bianchi for a lot of these Detective Comics issues are just amazing. Even when I first got into comics back in 2019, I would go digging through back issue bins, and I ended up, just by coincidence, with a bunch of these Detective Comics issues by Paul Dini. I did recognize Paul Dini's name, but mostly I was drawn in by those covers by Simone Bianchi. So cool to see him in these pages as well. So all in all, man, that's the book. This is a amazing hardcover to grab. This originally came out in 2020, which is when I grabbed mine, and it quickly came and went. But thanks to DC Comics and their stealth reprints, you can grab this on Organic Price Books right now. The link's down in the description box below. If you want, you can even use my discount code BJKicks at checkout. Save a couple of dollars, and thank me for doing this overview and all that. And yeah, that's Batman by Paul Dini. I'll see you guys in another OPB overview real soon. Peace.